Welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Weekly. I'm Greg. And
I'm Josie.
And I'm Thomas.
And this week we have the awesome Dianna Blake. I say that because she's my professor and she's also awesome. Hello, Dianna. Welcome to the show.
Hi, welcome. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so go ahead and introduce yourself to the audience.
So my name is Dianna Blake. I was a native Californian. I'm an English professor. And I also wrote a book called College Success for Moms, just kind of to help parents in general. Really, it can be for anybody, but at the time I wrote it for moms to help parents get through college, which is a area of higher ed I'm specifically care about. But most of my time is spent teaching composition.
Awesome. And the link, once Dianna sends me that, will be in the description below, so you can go ahead and check out that book if you want. Before we start on our main conversation about College for All, that's our episode this week, I just wanted to briefly talk about the latest news with the Biden administration pardoning those who were federally charged for possession. As well, he is also taking steps to remove it of the Schedule 1 classification, and also asking state governors to also pardon those who were charged by the state level with possession. It doesn't go nearly enough, but it is a good thing. I'm glad that, some people are, pardoned and getting the justice they deserve. That's always good. But we also need to remember that, we need to decriminalize it. We need to remove it as a Schedule 1 drug, and we need to legalize it all across the board. So I open the conversation. Just give me your brief thoughts and then we'll move on.
I think it's important to note that we should remember that there's plenty of people on the more conservative side of the spectrum that hate weed a lot. So
and to that, I'd say
easing them into the legality is probably what President Biden was thinking.
Mm-hmm.
So let's hope that that's the case.
I hope so. Thomas, you want to give your thoughts on this?
I remember the rhetoric from the 2000s era. It was very, like, this is a Class A drug. Like, this is a drug that leads to, all sorts of other issues. Like, so, I mean, this is nice. Nice to see that even people like Joe Biden, who are, in terms of the spectrum, the political spectrum, is, definitely a conservative.
Yeah.
But so it's nice to see at least they have to placate this issue, or at least make it seem like they're doing something that is somewhat progressive, even if it's only going to affect 6,500 people who are fall under federal jurisdiction. But yeah.
Dianna, so you live in Iowa. Obviously weed is not legal there, unfortunately. But go ahead and give me your brief thoughts on this.
I think it's a good first step.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the most important part is moving it from that schedule and reclassifying it. It makes no sense that it's right there with meth and
what the
stronger
hell
drugs. Yeah, I didn't even realize that. I do think that is great, and I think the fact that even states like South Dakota have legalized marijuana. Here in Iowa, it is legal with a medical card. I just found that out this week. But it is something that there's a stigma around, and even my students here often write about how important it would be to legalize it. So I think it's a good first step.
That's good. All right, so going into our main conversation is College for All. What would that look like? Well, College for All is basically the title, making sure that higher education is completely accessible to everyone in this country. Bernie Sanders, we love him, has a whole page, which I will be sharing with the audience, about what that means. He goes into great detail onto his website. Let me just go ahead and share that right now. This was published on his website in 2017, and it goes in, by saying higher education in America should be a right for all, not a privilege for the few. If we are to succeed in a highly competitive global economy and have the best educated in the workforce in the world, public colleges and universities must become tuition free for working families, and we must substantially reduce student debt, which we will go into later. This is on his website, and the link will also be in the description. I want to go ahead and start with you, Dianna. You are an educator. What does college for all mean to you? And do you even possibly see this as an option in this country?
I'd like to say yes. I think that is how it should be. I don't think anybody should have to go in debt in order to get an education, and be that a certificate all the way through a graduate degree. There's so much, but especially undergraduate, it is so expensive. And the time I spent in California, I thought it was expensive. And then when I moved here, I realized it was pretty cheap back there. And that's the thing a lot of people don't realize, especially coming from states like California, Texas, Florida, New York, Michigan, that have really good systems, that a lot of the country, their students are going into debt just to get a bachelor's degree. And I agree with Bernie, it is a right to have that education. But, you know, for so many centuries, only the elite got to go to school. So now we're in the middle fighting back that we should be able to do this without decades of debt behind us, that stops us from doing so many things that we want to do. My personal experience, it took me about 75 days to close escrow on my house because of my student loan debt. And,
Wow.
you know, I had no idea. And I do feel like colleges take advantage of the federal programs and the state programs. And so then the tuition goes up, but the federal and state allowances don't. And that's where there's a problem. You know, I had a friend whose parents only made about $42,000 a year with 3 kids, and she would receive maybe 1/4 of the Pell Grant, which blew my mind.
Wow.
I couldn't believe it. And that slowed her down. It took her longer to graduate. It took her longer to start her career. And,
Yeah.
you know, I really hope, I do feel like there is that possibility of it going more towards this way, like Bernie wanted back in 2017. You know, maybe if people would have listened to Bernie then, there'd be a different situation now.
Yeah.
But yeah, as an educator, I'm seeing people that I know now that are having to make that decision to take out loans just to be able to afford to go to school.
Yeah. Josie, so I wanted to also turn over to you because you have just finished a majority of your education. Are you still going to school, or are you completely done?
No, I'm in grad school.
So you're in grad school now. So how does that feel as a grad student? Like, do you still feel the pressures of like, oh my gosh, and is this still doable? And you know, like, I also asked this as an undergrad, you know, like, you know, I always fear like, oh my gosh, is grad school even a thing for me, you know? What are your thoughts on all this?
Yeah, I have often thought about this. I had a huge struggle with college growing up. It was my biggest dream, and I was only given access to it because I was deemed an exceptional student, which is great, but also annoying, considering the fact that any mediocre average white person can go to college no problem. And that has to do with a lot of like expectations, racism, generational wealth, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm not too worried. It's kind of the reality when you're a student, you just accept that it's going to take a lot of money to get things done. But the problem is after you graduate, it's hard to find, depending on your career, that is, it's hard to find jobs that can even make up for the amount of money that you spent justifying the price. I tell everybody, go to community college first. And yes. But as far as student loans goes, I know that there's plenty of people who went to trade school and are in incredible debt because they wanted to be a mechanic or they wanted to learn how to do body work on a car. And it's a huge issue across the board. And I think that even up to trade school, that those should be free as well, especially if we want to be a functioning society. We should value trades just as much as higher education, higher education,
trade school, acting school. If you're in school after high school, it's higher. Okay, let's just put it there. Thomas, so you came from a country called the UK, and I know I always mess with him with my British accent. It's terrible, but education is a lot different. Can you explain the difference between higher ed in the UK versus in America?
Well, it's actually kind of interesting because what we're seeing from Biden's proposals on reforming it is very similar to what the Conservative Party in the UK has laid out or has laid out for a number of years now in the United Kingdom. In fact, when my parents went to university, my dad went to university, it was free when he went. It was free, paid for, came out with no debt. And effectively the UK had what was college fraud. It was a college fraud program. And then as the years went by, it turned into a system where instead of fully funding the yearly payout, they just reduced it every few years. They decided to cut the grant money towards the yearly fee. And so a lot of students now have to pay anywhere between £8,000 and £10,000 a year for university. And that's financially backed by what's called student loans. Similar here, you have what's called the FSA, is that right? But you have a mix of private and public loans.
Yes.
Yeah. So what you're seeing with Biden's plan is effectively turning it into they would cap interest rates, which is what the UK does. It caps interest rates based on the amount you're able to repay, and you only repay a certain amount based on your income, and that's essentially what the UK plan is. So I went to college, and I only repay based on the amount that I earn, even if I'm overseas. So I pay back based on what I can afford to pay back. It essentially turns into an extra tax, essentially. But the problem remains of 20 years from now, the government could decide, you know what, we're going to scrap this. I'm going to force everyone to repay. So you still got this lingering debt issue over your head that even with interest rates capped, they're capped at like 5%. It's still a lot of money. Most people in the UK still, like America, are never repaying their student loans if they ever do, because they can't afford to.
What's really bothersome is the fact that even federal student aid isn't enough. I am financially independent since my mom had passed away, back in 2018. And that means I get all the financial aid I get. And it's so sad that we one side goes, okay, you're 18, you're on your own, go. Oh, you're 18, that means we're not going to give you as much money as someone who isn't necessarily with their parents. So what's the narrative here? Are you 18 and fully grown and, you know, you got to do it on your own? Or, you know, girl, go by. Or, you know, are they not? So what is it here? You know, and then another thing is, Josie mentioned go to community college. As someone who went to who is in community college, is about to exit, thank God. I was able to change my major many times without going into debt, as well as, you know, networking and refining my skills to where, you know, most transfer students actually end up doing better than incoming freshmen because they had that time to refine their skills and learn. You know, I think, you know, that in regards to, you know, college, you know, community college should be the, you know, the next thing after high school. Like throwing 18-year-olds or 17-year-olds into a university where they just don't really give you as much support as community colleges do for its students, it's very scary, you know.
I guess I would argue that it's just different for other people. I thrived in a four-year university. That is
Really?
exactly the type of environment that I needed. I needed the boots to the ground, get it all done. I worked 40 hours a week when I was in college and I was a full-time student. It's just we're built differently, you know. There's people that can do that and other people who need a little bit more of hand-holding.
Yeah.
And I think that it's fine to have both, but both should be affordable.
Exactly, too. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. So Dianna, I ask you this. So there's this common misconception where if there's college for all, teachers aren't going to get paid enough, even though they're not getting paid enough now. But you can add on to that. What do you think? Like, I feel like that is the biggest stupid lie that the right tries to do, but give me your thoughts.
I agree with you. I feel like that's just such a scapegoat out of the argument. And I have so many thoughts about how much of tuition goes to upper administration across the board.
Oh, amen.
Yeah,
Mhm.
like
Bill
I don't
Scroggins of
understand
Mount
that.
San Antonio College were talking about you. He literally
And
makes
some
more than-
others nearby.
Uh-huh.
Like it makes no sense to me that a university president needs to make the same amount a year as the country's president. Like that doesn't, I
Makes
don't
more than
understand
the
that.
president.
Yeah, and sometimes
Yeah.
more. Like I don't understand that. While you have the faculty and the advisors with their boots on the ground, you know, busting their butt and barely making a living wage.
Mhm.
And it's, you know, it is a ploy. It's a way to stop the conversation and not move forward. And the worst part is when schools will tell faculty, well, if we give you a raise, we have to raise tuition for the students. So then pitting students, faculty against students. And, you know, I don't want to think about my students with more debt, you know, so it's pretty, it's embarrassing. That's the best way to put it. It's embarrassing. And I don't think it's true. I think they would be just fine.
Well, they're probably better off. The government would regulate salaries across the country. No Harvards would get paid exceptionally more than a state school, right? It would be so much more equitable and so much more equal.
And that's the thing about education. Education is like an equalizer. It's an equalizer. It puts you in the door, yeah, to higher paying jobs sometimes. It gives you networking to, you know, your peers. You know, now I'm glad, you know, with my college experience, I have people that I can turn to, like, hey, I want to do this. Let's collaborate, you know. That is so important. And, you know, for marginalized communities, you know, that college isn't an option sometimes. And it's really fucking sad.
I agree. I it's no secret that one of the largest populations of parenting students that don't graduate is single Black fathers. And I've had the chance to meet with many of them either in person or virtually. And thankfully, there are some great programs depending on their situation. But there's still barriers that if those barriers were gone, they'd be able to finish that education sooner. And, you know, it to me, it feels like the people that are against free education want you to get that degree and stimulate the economy, but they also don't want you at an equal level with them. Like they're, you know, that's just
Well,
me.
you know that they're making it more difficult. Like, well, I'm pretty
Oh,
sure
yeah.
they do. But like, come on, you know, you can have it both ways. Thomas, I know you were about to say something. Go ahead.
I was say, Diana, you made a good point before about, you know, people in the higher administration making a lot more money than the actual people on the ground. That's like every private enterprise ever.
Yeah.
That's like every, and you know, like you imagine a private company with a CEO, you know, if they get a bonus for laying off a bunch of workers, they'll do it. You know, so the main issue is that these aren't being seen as services; they're being seen as for-profit enterprises, and that's the issue. The other problem is it's also a control metric. You know, you were saying, Greg, about the fact that, you know, it's like you don't want a level playing field, and it's the same with healthcare. You know, what we're seeing right now with education, actually, we're seeing more and more private companies coming out saying, you know, if you come work for us, we'll pay off your college debt, or we'll partially put money towards college for you to come work for us in a position. But what that does is it entraps you in that job, probably at a low wage for a long time.
Yeah.
And so that's what we're seeing. It's the same with healthcare. People feel trapped in their work because of the health insurance.
And what's also
And
sad is that, you know, once let's say you get your BA. Well, apparently some jobs want to pay 15 an hour for a BA. What's up with that? Someone give me your thoughts on that one, because that pisses me off.
Oh,
California wage.
I have one for you. Oh man. Okay. My husband is about to be promoted at Walmart. He is in the middle of finishing his BA, but he's got a way to go. Without his BA, he will be making $19 an hour, which is great. I'm happy for that end. But when then I look at if I break down my salary as an instructor, it's not hourly, but if I were to take my annual and break it down hourly, I'm not making $10 more than him. Like the gap is very small, and you know, it is frustrating, but on the same end, you shouldn't be making $15. You should be making a lot more even with a bachelor's. It's just the math isn't mathing, you know. It
isn't mathing.
It's just not fair.
No.
And then to see people that have gone through graduate school not making a wage that's significant in comparison to no degree is mind-blowing, which is why when students ask me about grad school, I used to be really excited about it, and I did love grad school, but now I say go if you need to go. Not if you want to go, but if you need to go. Don't do it for funsies. It is not fun. And it costs a lot of money.
Very expensive just for fun.
Yeah. No funsies in grad school. It's the opposite of funsies. So
on the grad school front, my partner just finished his graduate degree in organic chemistry. Right. Who knows what the hell organic chemistry is, right?
Yeah, what the fuck is that?
He's a chemist, and he got a $5,000 annual raise at his job for his master's degree.
Wow.
That is nothing.
Yeah.
That it's pretty ridiculous.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, that's too low.
Yeah.
But, you know, a lot of these issues are interconnected. You know, we talked about having a federal jobs program, right? And how that would also level out the playing field of, you know, we need, problem is private enterprise and also a lot of jobs in the public service the reason why they can get away with paying $50 an hour for a bachelor's degree is because they know people come out of college and like they've got no experience or they've got no foot in the door anywhere. They've just got, they're trained, but they're coming out of a bunch of people that are also trained that also have a load of debt hanging over them, and they desperately need to find work. And so a lot of these issues to be connected where there needs to be something else in place where, there needs to be a program where people, at the end of this 4 or 5 year college degree, that there is a job waiting at the end of the tunnel. You're not scrambling at the end of graduating and going, now what? Some people graduate and they never find a job within the actual degree.
Don't say that. Don't. It's true though. So we're gonna go ahead and close the conversation with me sharing my screen again. And it is the Biden-Harris administration's student debt relief plan. This is on studentaid.gov, which will also be in the description. So the main part of the plan is that it will cancel up is it 20,000 now? 20 up to 20,000?
Dependent.
Yeah. $10,000 to $20,000 for federal student loans. And then for people making less than $100,000 or $250,000 for households. Like I said, it doesn't go enough. He has the power to cancel it all. We've said that many times on this show. But if you are looking for cancellation relief, student loan debt relief, go ahead and check this out if this might be something for you.
And it works retroactively. My sister had $20,000 of her student loans paid back to her. She had finished paying off her student loans. God bless her and fuck her.
Oh.
But also, she was able to get a $20,000 refund.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. So that's good that that's happening. But we also need to hold our leaders accountable, and the fact that he can actually just cancel it all, it just shows they have the power to do something. They choose not to keep the power dynamic in place. Go ahead, Thomas.
You saw it recently where they backed out of doing it for private loans completely. They've come out and said we're not going to, because obviously we knew this would happen. Conservatives, hardcore conservatives, challenged it in court, and the Biden administration is just, they're like, nah, we're not going to challenge it, we're not going to fight for it, and so they backed out completely. So what this is supposedly going to forgive people who both had public loans and private loans, and now if you fall under the bracket of people that took out a mixture of public and private, like I don't know about my wife went just recently graduated from a private for massage therapy for a private institution, and I now don't know whether she's going to get any relief from this because of the fact that it was a mix of public and private loans. And so this is going to affect millions of people because the Biden administration has just decided they're just not going to fight, which is just
go ahead. Go
ahead, Greg. No, I was going to say, yeah, sorry. No, you're right.
It's okay, go ahead.
Yeah, they're not fighting for it, which is a real shame. And I just, and the other thing on that page, the fact that people have to apply for the loan, like they shouldn't have to apply.
It should be automatic.
It should just be like we're reaching out to reaching out to the programs, and we're going to automatically deduct $10,000 or $20,000. Like why are we adding these layers and layers of bureaucracy? I know why, but it's just
Dianna, you want to give us your final thoughts to close this off?
One thing that I noticed is the 5% cap is only for undergraduate loans. On that website, it says for undergraduate loans, which means the cap does not have anything to do with graduate, and a lot of people do have graduate debt. So I'm curious to see how that's going to play out, or if that will change. But I agree, it's not enough. It is a one step. But you know, we went that whole pandemic with most people not paying, and still here the country is. So I feel like we would have survived canceling the loans. So that's my 2 cents. And I'm going to send that link to you, by the way.
Thank
Oh
you.
boy.
All right, and that concludes our main discussion. Now, it's time for the fun topic.
So this story, am I the asshole for missing my grandchild's birth to attend my other daughter's wedding? I am the mother to 2 wonderful daughters, Sophia, 32, and Nicole, 26, and I'm really not sure if I was cruel towards Sophia for my decision or not. Nicole got married this year, and Sophia had her first child, which is my first grandchild. I've had a good relationship with both my daughters, and I've always tried to make sure neither of them felt like I favored the other. But I admit there were some rough patches with Sophia. When Nicole got engaged, we asked if I would walk her down the aisle, since her father has never been in her life. I asked her what about her uncles or brother, and she said no. She wanted me. I was more than happy to agree and helped her plan her wedding. My daughter Sophia announced her pregnancy around the beginning of the year. The timing panned out that she would be due after Nicole's wedding, so she asked if I would be in the delivery room with her and stay with her and her husband for a few weeks after the baby was born to help out. I was very excited too, and since we already live in the same town and see each other almost daily, staying with her wouldn't have been a problem at all. Instead, Sophia went into labor almost 3 weeks early. The afternoon before Nicole's wedding, I missed Sophia's first call because I was already almost 2.5 hours away where Nicole lives and helping set things up and doing last-minute errands to help. When I called her back, I found out she was in labor and she wanted me to get there as soon as possible. I told Sophia I would do the best I could and would let her know immediately when I'd be there. I explained the situation to Nicole, who understandably also wanted me to be there for her, but understood that Sophia wanted me with her too. Nicole was able to move her ceremony to the morning and make it a quick 25-ish minute ceremony, and there would just be a few hours gap in between the ceremony and the reception. I thought this was a good compromise that would let me be there for both of my girls. I called Sophia and she wanted me to get there that night. I asked if her husband was with her and she said yes, so I asked her to please consider him as a second choice until I get there. Sophia got upset and told me to forget about it.
Josie, you recently got married also. Congratulations.
Thank you.
What are your thoughts on this?
Sophia's an asshole. The mom is saint. The other sister is great. Sophia's a selfish little bitch, and she can shove that baby back up her if she really wants her mom there. Okay, what a brat. Why do you want your mom in the room while you're giving birth? Like,
that's gross. If I could, I would not want anyone I knew.
I wouldn't want
in that
anybody
room.
but me, doctor. Let's get this done. Come on.
This is between me and the doctor. Diana, go ahead. As someone who's had children.
I'm sorry, Sophia is a little bitch. That's the only way. Okay, first of all, that last statement was very much in the throes of hormonal problems and labor, so I get it. I also have a story about my mother-in-law hanging up on my husband when he called to tell her that we were having the baby. So I you know, that little spice right before you're about to have a baby is great. But like, Nicole moved her, like, come on. No,
So
the baby's not going to remember. So forget Sophia.
Yeah.
No. And didn't Nicole ask first? So Nicole asked first. So sorry, Sophia.
Yeah,
you got like into 5 minutes after the baby's born.
Yeah. You got into this problem with your husband, you can get out of it too. So
Thomas, what was your reaction when you first saw it?
I just thought, like, if this is your worst problem in the world, like, I think you're all right.
Yeah,
I think you're doing okay.
like, bitch, we got bills to pay. We ain't got time for that petty
We have
bullshit.
student loans.
And the hard part is after you get home from the hospital and mom's gonna be there. So get over it. That's
Yeah.
spoiled.
And the
I
bill.
wish-
There are worse
Yeah.
things. There are worse things that are happening in this world. People got shit to do. I have an essay to write for this one. You know, so fuck you, Sophia. That has been another episode of Let's Talk Weekly. I'm Greg,
I'm Josie.
And I'm Thomas.
and thank you, Dianna, for coming on the show.
My pleasure. I can't wait to come back again.
All right. We will see y'all on Wednesday. Toodles.